Earlier today was XO19. This is an Xbox-based conference that had a plethora of game reveals around that system, but also Gamepast and new releases on PC. A lot of pretty cool stuff was announced during this, but one particularly exciting thing that we were looking forward to was Obsidian's presence. Obviously, as many of you know, Obsidian just released the Outer Worlds not too long ago. At one point, they actually have announced and teased that an update is on the way. We haven't heard too many other details around that or its release date, but when it does come out, I definitely will cover it. But of course, separately, a lot of people were excited for post-launch content as far as the Outer Worlds go. And with Xbox teasing Obsidian and also talking about the Outer Worlds, I think a lot of people were expecting something in that regard. Unfortunately, we didn't actually get anything. Obsidian did announce a brand new survival game that they do have on the way, and I have a lot to say about that as well as some of the other context around this that is pretty important. But for those of you looking for additional details about future iterations of the Outer Worlds or even just some DLC content for this first version, you're gonna have to wait a little bit longer. Although something else that can hold you over, earlier today separately, we actually also got an article from Eurogamer. This was effectively a tour of Obsidian's office, getting to see the post-Microsoft purchase Obsidian, but also a peek at some of these new games, and specifically we hear details around the Outer Worlds, describing that a post-release plan hasn't been announced yet, but there's still a team in the Outer Worlds corner working on something. Obsidian isn't leaving it behind in a rush to work on Microsoft projects, so we'll probably get something at some point in the future. One potential explanation of this is the Outer Worlds is published by Take-Two under Private Division, not Xbox, even though Xbox owns Obsidian, so maybe that's why we weren't seeing that tease at this conference, or maybe they're just not ready to show off whatever it is. But either way, even though we have to wait a little bit while longer for the Outer Worlds details, we did just get new details on Grounded. It's a new multiplayer survival game that's coming to Xbox and Steam in spring of 2020. To me, watching the trailer, seeing some of the gameplay, it gave me hardcore Rust vibes, and the big twist with this particular game is you're going to be a very small person. You're going to be smaller than ant-sized and living in a world that way. Instead of cutting down something like a tree, you're cutting down pieces of grass. Watching the trailer again, there isn't really a ton to break down. You can see a lot of things that are pretty interesting in the background, both above ground and underground gameplay, although it doesn't really look like mining is a thing as much as you're just going to be exploring pre-made tunnels by other creatures. Speaking of creatures, they do show off a wide variety in this trailer, several of which I think look pretty interesting. Something some people may not realize with this game is it's actually not a multiplayer game in the sense of PvP being a focus. Rather, it's a co-op multiplayer game. On Obsidian's page for this, they describe it as being a game you could navigate solo or with up to 3 additional players in co-op multiplayer. So you're going to be working together with them, a stark contrast to some of the other survival games out there like Rust or DayZ. It's described one as a sandbox game, so it looks like this will be a big backyard in a suburban neighborhood that you will be able to explore, but even further, base building of course was featured in the trailer as a main component of that, although on its website it's described how there also will be story-based missions. They didn't really expand on that any further outside of just mentioning there will be story-based missions. So all in all, this looks like an interesting one to me, and I've actually seen some pushback or backlash around this, but I think a lot of people are misunderstanding what exactly this is. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a large-scale game. I haven't seen any pricing posted for this quite yet, but the Obsidian community manager does describe how this is only being developed by 13 people. It's fairly small, and at 13 people, it's not taking up a plethora of resources that other games could be using. It just seems like a one-off smaller project that they're going to do as a part of their Xbox deal. Although the game was in development before Xbox purchased them, but now it seems like a Microsoft exclusive. And frankly, regardless of how you feel about this one, if you just buy Game Pass, this seems like a cool one to try out. As of late, Game Pass is becoming more and more lucrative. I've personally been using it for several months at this point, and considering I'll probably still be a member in spring of 2020, this is an easy one to just download for me, even if it's not a larger scale game that'll be dumping hundreds of hours into. Although I do understand a lot of people want more RPG goodness from Obsidian, especially under the Xbox deal. As I mentioned earlier in this video, there's Outer Worlds DLC or post-launch content of some kind on the way, but separately and even further, they actually are also working on a AAA RPG. We know of at least 3 active teams right now, one of them on Grounded, one of them on the Outer Worlds post-launch, and a third that is still working on what are described as big RPGs. In a past video, we actually looked at how recently Obsidian has had a variety of hirings for AAA RPG developers. This could be something like the Outer Worlds 2 for Xbox, or potentially Microsoft wants to see it as a launch title, or a soon thereafter launch title, which is probably more realistic. But either way, for those of you that were disappointed in this or want to see more in the form of the Outer Worlds or just Obsidian RPGs in general, I wouldn't fret too much. It looks like a lot more is still on the way from that company, and there's going to be a lot to look forward to, both in 2020 and even onwards. So yeah, that is a look at Obsidian's new game, but also some of the other stuff coming from them over the next couple of years. Hopefully you guys found this video informative. Hopefully you found it useful to watch. But with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.